If you're listening to this at 3 a.m., look at the door of your closet, right now. Is it cracked open just an inch? Mine was. And that inch was enough to let it in. In this video, I am going to tell you exactly what happened to my brother Thomas in the winter of 2024. Why the police found his room completely sealed from the inside. And why the thing currently sitting at the foot of my bed has his exact voice, but none of his teeth. If you think your home is safe, you have about 15 minutes to change your mind. We bought the property in upstate New Hampshire because it was cheap. Dirt cheap. For 5 acres of dense pine forest and a 2-story colonial house. $40,000 felt like a robbery. My dad thought he struck gold. Thomas and I, being teenagers, just cared about having our own rooms. Thomas took the attic. I took the bedroom at the end of the second floor hallway. But houses that cheap always carry a tax. You just don't pay it in cash. It started during the second week of November. The winter hit early that year, dropping the temperature below 0 before Thanksgiving. The heating vents in that old place didn't blow warm air. They blew this strange metallic-smelling draft that made the back of your throat taste like copper, like old pennies. I woke up around 2:40 a.m. because I heard Thomas walking down the hallway. He had this specific limp from a football injury over the summer, a heavy drag of his left heel. I opened my door, expecting to see him going to the kitchen for a glass of water. Instead, I saw him standing at the top of the basement stairs. The door was wide open, revealing nothing but a square of absolute pitch black dark. "Thomas," I called out. My voice sounded thin, swallowed by the shadows of the corridor. He didn't turn around. He just tilted his head so far to the right that I heard his neck vertebrae pop. It was a wet, cracking sound. He stepped down into the dark. I ran after him, grabbing a flashlight from the kitchen counter. When I shone the beam down the wooden steps, the wood looked wet, not from water. It was slick, glistening, almost like grease. "Thomas, get the hell up here. Dad's going to kill us if we mess with the breaker," I hissed, stepping onto the first landing. The air down there was different. It wasn't just cold. It felt heavy, like trying to breathe underwater. At the center of the concrete floor sat Thomas. He was on his knees, staring directly into the foundation wall where the stone met the dirt. When the flashlight beam hit his face, my stomach dropped. His eyes were wide, completely unblinking, veins red and ruptured. And he was chewing. His jaw was moving sideways, grinding with a terrible dry crunching sound. "What are you eating?" I whispered, reaching out to touch his shoulder. He spat something out onto the floor. It clicked against the concrete. I lowered the light. It was a chunk of the old foundation stone, covered in dark, viscous saliva. He had bitten off a piece of the wall. After that night, Thomas changed. He stopped speaking to me. He stopped eating at the dinner table. He spent every waking hour in his attic room, the door locked from the inside. My parents thought it was just teenage angst or depression from moving to a new town. But I knew better. Every night, through the ceiling of my bedroom, I heard him. He wasn't sleeping. He was pacing, hour after hour. And then came the scratching. It sounded like someone using their fingernails to peel wallpaper. But it went on for miles. On December 12th, the pacing stopped. The house became dead silent. Too silent. You know that kind of quiet right before a massive blizzard hits, where even the air feels frozen. That was our house. By noon, my dad lost his patience. He took a crowbar from the garage, walked up to the attic stairs, and slammed it into the door frame. The wood splintered with a loud crack, but the door didn't budge. It felt like he was hitting a solid block of concrete. It took him and 3 neighbors 2 hours to swing the door open. When it finally gave way, we didn't find a messy teenager's room. The room was completely empty. No bed, no desk, no clothes. But it wasn't just cleared out. The entire inside of the room, the walls, the ceiling, the floor, the windows, had been covered in thick gray mud. It had dried into a hard stone-like shell. Thomas had literally plastered his entire room from the inside out. There were no tools left behind, no buckets of cement, just the gray, rough crust covering everything. And in the center of the floor, embedded directly into the hardened mud, were human fingernails. Dozens of them torn off at the root, pushed into the wet clay before it dried. The police search lasted 3 weeks. They brought dogs. They tore up the floorboards in the living room. They dug up the snowy woods for a mile around the property. Nothing. The K9 units wouldn't even cross the threshold of the house. They just sat in the driveway, whining, their tails tucked between their legs. Eventually, the case went cold. My parents couldn't bear to stay. They packed up and moved into a rental in Boston, leaving me behind for a few days to oversee the final moving truck. I insisted on staying. I told them I needed closure. The truth was, I knew he hadn't left the house, because the pacing had started again. The first night I was completely alone in that house. I didn't sleep. I sat on the living room sofa with a loaded 12-gauge shotgun across my lap and 3 thermoses of black coffee. At exactly 3 a.m., the temperature dropped so fast, my breath bloomed into white clouds right inside the room. Then came the sound from the hallway upstairs. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard it felt painful. I stood up, raising the barrel of the gun. The footsteps traveled down the stairs, slow, deliberate. But when I looked at the staircase, there was no one there. The steps were empty, yet the wood depressed under an invisible weight, creaking with every step. The invisible entity stopped right at the bottom of the stairs, 3 feet away from me. The smell hit me first. It smelled like the basement wall, wet earth, copper, and rotting hair. Then, a voice came from the corner of the ceiling. It was Thomas's voice. It had that same slight cracking pitch he got when he was nervous. "Hey," the voice said, "it's cold down here. Can you let me into your room tonight?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My jaw was locked in pure terror. I made a mistake. The voice continued, drifting across the ceiling like a moving cloud of smoke. The house. It doesn't want our money. It wants our space. It needs to fill the empty parts. I fired. The blast from the shotgun shattered the drywall in the hallway, filling the air with white plaster dust and smoke. I didn't wait to see what I hit. I dropped the gun, ran to my truck, and slammed my foot on the gas, tearing down the icy driveway without looking back.